Hey, I'm Laura. Just quickly, we here at GRITtv are proud to bring you independently produced content every day. Now it's your chance to help us. GRITtv has been offered a $100,000 challenge grant. Every dollar you give right now between now and June 30th is worth $3 to us. We've only got a few more weeks to meet the match. Will you help? You can donate at our website, GRITtv.org. Meanwhile, enjoy this clip. First off, President Barack Obama has agreed under pressure to send 1,200 more National Guard troops to the south this week, but not to the Gulf Coast, where locals are desperate, but rather to the Arizona-Mexico border, where state legislators, including Democrats, are raising a ruckus about cross-border crime. Is crime actually up in Arizona? No, but that doesn't seem to be the prime issue here. Some say the president is simply maneuvering for support for a federal immigration law, but there's also the possibility that when it comes to political potency, anything to do with race and the other still packs a bigger punch than even an ongoing ecological disaster. Would anything have been different in the U.S. government's response to the BP crisis if the company and its CEO had been Venezuelan or Iranian? What then? Up next, a conversation with Maya Wiley of the Center for Social Inclusion.
An administration official says President Barack Obama will deploy 1,200 National Guard troops to help secure the U.S. border with Mexico. The president is also requesting $500 million for border protection and law enforcement efforts.
500 million and 12,000 troops. I mean, he has sent troops to the Gulf Coast weeks back, but surely all hands are needed on the coast. What are you making of this announcement, Maya?
I make that it's an election year. And the bottom line is this is an election year. We all know it's an election year. We know it's going to shift the conversation. We know it's going to drive D.C. to make decisions that are not in our best interests as a nation, but in the best interests of individual lawmakers.
So would you agree that this anything to do with race, the other, foreigners, packs a bigger punch in D.C. than even this crisis on the Gulf Coast?
It's hard to imagine why this crisis on the Gulf Coast is not front and center. It's much bigger, both to the national economy and to the people who live in the Gulf Coast. We've been hearing the reports and seeing it for a long time. The troops that we're talking about to border control in Arizona are not going to deal with the underlying problems. We all know that. Everyone knows that. Yeah.
And what about, do you think I'm crazy? Do you think if that Tony Hayward, the CEO of BP, spoke with just a little bit of a little bit less of a British accent, maybe was African American or, I don't know, Libyan or something, things would be different?
We would be slamming BP like you would not believe on a daily and regular basis. I mean, I think BP was smart because it came out front early in the disaster and said, this is our fault, we take responsibility, we will pay. Right? And that was a very smart tactical maneuver on BP's part because it also diffused the debate about what BP should do. As the news reports started to come out about BP's underlying mismanagement, its refusal to invest in safety, even the behavior of some of the subcontractors, it was just inhuman in terms of the men who were on that rig and how they treated them, making them sit and watch their colleagues. I mean, it's disgusting.
Not to mention the 11 dead.
That's right. And so, yes, we would have seen a totally different response if this weren't British.
The rhetoric around Arizona's immigration law, SB 1070, is a lot about safety. There's a connection here we'll get to. But first off, here's one of the voices, a man who says he was one of those who drafted that law itself, State Senator Randall Pierce. And it's worth pointing out that this is a guy who has made public appearances with J.T. Reddy, a known white supremacist. Take a look.
Enough's enough. How many more people have to die? Billions of dollars in cost to the taxpayers. It's outrageous. It's malfeasance on the part of government. Government, I'll go even farther. Government is complicit in the deaths, the maimings, and the billions of dollars in cost to America and Americans. Our citizens have a constitutional right to have these laws enforced. And the failure to enforce them is an abuse to the lawful citizens of this country who pay the price for that failure. This is not only a national security issue, but once they cross that border, it's our neighborhoods, it's our health care, it's our criminal justice system, it's our education system. It's our responsibility to our citizens to protect and to serve. We intend to enforce the law here in Arizona.
You talk a lot in your work at the Center for Social Inclusion about implicit and explicit racial messages. What do you hear there in Pierce's talk?
It's very clear if you say our schools, our communities. Who's our? Who are we? Who are we as a nation?
Well, he would say we're just American.
Yeah, and who are we in America? We're from different countries. We have different cultures. We have different languages. We've all come to this country from other countries, at least those of us who are not native to the U.S. This is code language. This is code language, and it usually gets paired with images of Latinos who are in handcuffs to create a criminalized image of who we're talking about. I mean, rarely do we show a mother with a child, right? Or a construction worker, or people who are actually contributing to the economy and who are building families.
It is an election year, and it's not just people like Pierce. You've also got a Democrat, Gabrielle Gifford, being one of those who's supporting the sending of the troops to the border. What alternative responses are there for politicians in a climate like this?
Well, this is the complicated point. We believe seriously at the Center for Social Inclusion that we have to figure out a way to talk to each other. And that means talking to people who are not where we are. What that means is swing white voters, right? I mean, let's call it what it is. We're talking about, if you look at who has supported the law in Arizona, it's 60% roughly, if you believe the recent polls, and I do, that it's about 60% support the law.
And not just there.
And not just there. But 57% support comprehensive immigration reform. So the law and the support for the law is not about some of what we have just heard in that clip that you just showed. It's actually about a frustration that the national government, recognizing it's a national issue, has not taken the leadership to deal in this way broadly and comprehensively.
Democrats were very happy at polling, I'm imagining, were happy at polling in the last few days that has shown that Latino voters are almost completely abandoning the Republican Party, could win them the election this fall. That being the case, do they need to worry? Do they have to grapple with any of this stuff?
They have to grapple with comprehensive immigration reform. I mean, what our message testing shows is that if you stake out the territory up front, that means talk about us as all of us. All of us are white, we're Latino, we're black, we're Asian, we're Native American. Make sure that the us is all of us.
And be explicit about that?
And be explicit about it. Say, look, we have, and also recognize that people who are living on the borders who are white have legitimate concerns. There are safety issues. There are issues related to both employers hiring people illegally. There are issues that we actually have to confront honestly and constructively. And when we say that to people, it's like, we hear you. This is an issue. People living in Arizona, you have an issue, and we have to deal with it comprehensively. We have to take care of it. And that may mean that we have to have a balance between recognizing that we do have to have some border controls. We do have to crack down on employers who are hiring people illegally. And we have to create a meaningful pathway to citizenship.
Maya Wiley, thanks for coming in. See you again very soon. Maya is the executive director and the founder of the Center for Social Inclusion. There's information and a link at our website, GRITtv.org.